It's my favorite.
Yep. Surprised nobody. Welcome in the Jock Market Strategy Show, NBA edition here. Geoff, myself in the house with you. The two of us, with the help of Mike Awesemo producing, are going to get you through tonight's busy, jammed Wednesday slate. This seems to be the norm here. I can't remember. It's either like a holiday or going up against some random event in which the NBA kind of kneels on a Wednesday, and that's very unlikely. So normally, Geoff, we get jammed when it comes to a Wednesday slate, and we'll do our best to get through everything here tonight.
I mean, I don't think I've ever done this show without like at least 7 or 8 games. And again, yeah, we got like 11 tonight. So, or 10. I don't know. It's a lot.
Double digits. You're right. Somewhere in that range. It's just overwhelming when you look at the slate ahead of time. But then, you whittle some stuff down. We do like to start where we can with some high totals, or at least I try to nudge you in that direction. But you always love to throw a wrench in there and say, let's start with a 208.5 because there's value there. All right, let's remind everybody, Jock Market real quick, and Geoff's going to walk you through this. We do have our projections up there as far as fair IPO value. Alex and company have put that up for you leading up to tonight. So you can follow along on the app as well. Just download that and use our promo code Awesemo. We'll match that first deposit up to 50 there. It's nice and easy. I'm curious, though, because, I always like to try and at least start with the high-flying games, even though I can see, Geoff, that some of those games could be like, the Kings, Pacers, what have you. What caught your eye of all these games, of all the lines, the totals, any side or lean here from a Jock Market standpoint? What's caught your eye first and foremost?
Yeah. So this is, look, there's a ton going on. We're in tank season, obviously, for NBA. So the bad teams are, the Rockets have ruled out like half their starting roster here, and they're going up against the Kings of all team who, they're down everyone too. So, this game, it's got a 229 total, and at 229.5 total, it's really close point spread at 3. This should just be like, it's the equivalent of pond hockey, right? I don't know what you call pond hockey in hoops, but what is it like? I don't know. Anyways, that's what we're going to get.
It'd probably be like some sort of, like street run or something.
Right.
Like
I don't know. I don't want to use the incorrect terminology.
No. That's fine. I'm saying like in New York, we had, we had West 4th Street, right? Where it was like the preeminent street runner up in Harlem or something. So it's just, it's just ball out there where it's free flowing. You don't have the constriction of it, right?
It's just ball. We'll just call it that. That's the kind of game I feel like. It's just guys going up the floor, chucking threes.
Yeah.
That's what it feels like we're going to get tonight. And I think that you should be looking at this game. You've got guys on Houston, a lot of young players. Jalen Green's usage is going to go through the roof. I'm sure that most people will be interested in him tonight, coming off a couple 40-plus fantasy point games. But Josh Christopher, 30 minutes played in his last game, another young player. He was over 40 fantasy points as well in his last outing, and I don't see his usage going down anytime soon, especially against Sacramento. So I think those are two guys you can target, rightfully so, tonight. Sengun, Alperen Sengun's a player I've always liked this season. Just really efficient fantasy producer. He's questionable. If he sits, I don't even know who else. Like we could go deeper here, but we're getting into guys like I don't even know. So, I think that Josh Christopher is probably my favorite play from the Houston side. But like Sengun, Green, you could probably double up here. They're not going to be now, they're not going to be surprises on Jock Market. People are going to be bidding for these guys too, but I still think that we're early enough with this news that like Wood is out and Schroeder's out, that people may just be a little bit slow to the gun here to necessarily pay up for these guys. So I really like Christopher. That's probably my favorite play on the Houston side. And look, Sacramento, it's kind of just a similar deal. We can go down the lineup. We can, maybe take a shot with like Metu tonight, who's probably going to be continuing to play solid minutes, but like Dante DiVincenzo, the usage should be there. And of course, Davion Mitchell without De'Aaron Fox, just playing absurd amount of minutes. I think you should be paying up for both sides tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, that's where targeting, as you mentioned, no real surprises there with the top guys, especially on Houston's end when we see guys just continually ruled out here. But if it's not Mitchell, which may be the more obvious option, you've given a couple there, especially, when you get down to Metu. Any love at all? Or is there maybe just as far as a fair IPO price, maybe a little too high to take a risk on a guy like Harrison Barnes?
No, I really don't think so, because
Okay.
this matchup, obviously you can't get any better. And I mean, there's almost no scenario where Harrison Barnes doesn't play like 35 plus minutes just because of the rotation, right? I mean, I don't think Sacramento is going to come in and blow the doors off of Houston. I guess it could happen, but I don't think either of these teams necessarily capable of that right now. And Harrison Barnes is a dude who going to be going up against a bunch of young players, playing, heavier usage, obviously. He's played pretty well of late too. Like, he hasn't been terrible or anything. He may even push for like a double-double or something crazy in the spot. So no, I really don't think that, in a lot of ways, you'll probably get a lot better IPO value on Harrison Barnes than I think with Davion Mitchell, because Davion Mitchell has been the more efficient fantasy producer late. And, he deserves a higher IPO price, but that'll just keep people off guys like Barnes, and maybe even, maybe even Trey Lyles as well. So I really don't mind taking a shot with like going down the lineup, outside of Mitchell with the Sacramento players. It's too good a matchup. Their rotation's too short. And it's just, they're going against Houston. So.
Yep. No, I know it. And I love targeting that because of how desperate and just down Houston is, not from a we need to win standpoint, but just from a, we're not
warm body standpoint.
Guys out. Yeah, exactly. But what about that, desperate for a win? Because you're talking about tank mode, and some teams are kind of out of it or just have given up. But the two teams that I'm looking at that are somewhat favorable matchups, although that Hornets line is a little tight by all means in New York. But look, Charlotte and Atlanta are right there at the bottom of the play-in scenario. And even if it's just fighting for seeding at this point, 9 versus 10, both of these teams, I would imagine, are highly motivated. 223 is a manageable total against the Knicks and MSG, but then you look at that 229.5 and that large line against the OKC Thunder for Atlanta. So maybe there's some value in targeting not only some players on Charlotte and players on Atlanta, but combine, Geoff, with the true desperation of, hey, we got to start winning some games in order to improve where we are.
Yeah, especially with Atlanta. I mean, I really don't have a problem going to that game. There's always blowout concerns, but the starters for Atlanta, like you said, I mean, like they have to perform in this spot. I mean, this is a big game for them in a lot of ways, and if this one does stay close at all, I mean, you could, you could still. And the thing about blowouts, like blowouts don't always happen in the first half, right? Like this game could stay close for 3 quarters, and then the starters could get all their points in the fourth quarter or something. So I really don't have a problem. I mean, Clint Capella's played extremely well. If we're looking at Trae Young just to start off, I mean, there's the only problem I have with Trae Young. It's not from an upside standpoint. I think he's definitely got potential to push for like the number 1 position tonight. So it's just, there's probably going to be a little bit better values and guys going under the radar, because it's such a big slate that if you have to pay all the way up for Trae Young, then, you're obviously, you're taking a bit more of a risk, and I'm just not sure you need to do that on the slate, but I really do like the potential here. I mean, I think that Trae Young, like I said, if this game stays close, he's going to have a chance. We do have him ranked 3rd, in the point projections. There's a little bit of a gap between him and like Jokic and Doncic, but man, I mean, I would be shocked if Trae Young put up like 70 points though, like 70 fantasy points. I really wouldn't. I think that's kind of like the scenario we have here, and you laid it out perfectly. Like it's a big game, and yeah, it's an easy matchup. We get that, but there should be no let up here from Atlanta. So I like the spot. Like I actually like going to Trae Young better than paying. I certainly like better than paying up for either Doncic or Jokic. I know those guys, maybe have bigger projections, but I think there's a bigger chance that Trae Young comes up with an upside game, and you will get him for cheaper than those guys. So I kind of like Trae Young tonight. I don't hate that strategy, but you can certainly go down the Atlanta lineup and just say, well, I'm just going to target Capella, and you can come back with someone on the other side too. OKC is another tanking team that, the thing about OKC too is I kind of, some of their players put up a little bit more of a fight. Let's put it that way. We've seen guys like Pokusevsky do all right. Aaron Wiggins is another player who shows up from time to time when he gets the minutes. So I don't really mind, targeting this game at all. I think it's one that people will maybe just, grab someone, but maybe we'll overlook some other options too. So
look, I know it was overtime and it was against Portland, who may be even worse, maybe, than where OKC is, but you could even target a guy like Isaiah Roby, who's coming off a 30-point game where, you're going to get minutes out there against Atlanta. Yeah. But, I think you also bring up an interesting point, Geoff, about the other pay-up options. And I can't make this argument by any means about Denver because of where they are, and they did not play last night. But look, Dallas right now, coming off the back-to-back, right? You mentioned Luka here. They're still fighting, right? They're still a game behind Golden State. Like, they can still move up and continue to secure where they are. But it is the second leg of a back-to-back in which Luka and company did have, their way. You could see either somewhat of a regression, or maybe it's the same here where Dallas gets up on Cleveland, et cetera, and it's just not Doncic. Like, it's easier to see that than I think it is for Young, and to be fair, for Jokic. So at least you can create a pathway or somewhat of a narrative where Luka doesn't have as dominant of a performance because of the second leg of the back-to-back, and it's just Dallas not needing this as much as Denver and really Atlanta as well. They still do, but not as much. I just want to clarify.
I agree 100%. And look, I mean, like it's not a good matchup either. Like, Cleveland is tougher defensive team. They play at a slower pace. There's a reason this total's 214, right? So, Doncic could easily just have one of those nights too, where, maybe triple doubles or something, just does everything. And we get a close game and it's just Luka taking over the game. That scenario's on the table too. And that's probably the reason why he's so highly in the projections this today still. But I agree. Like, I think there's more of a chance of him not necessarily busting, but just, the game plays a little bit slow. Maybe Dallas gets out to a small lead, or maybe even, maybe Cleveland gets out to a lead and Dallas just, kind of just, says, okay, we're moving on. Like, there's a lot of different ways this one can play out. So yeah, Luka is kind of off the table for me. I like I said, I much prefer the Trae Young play if you're going to pay up. I don't think you have to, because I mean, there's a ton of different opportunities on the slate. And I think that if you go down off the top three players, who I think we kind of laid out pretty well. Yeah. There's other opportunities. And, I'll make the transition here. Like, sure. I think one game people may just kind of just bypass and just kind of forget is the late game with Phoenix and Golden State. It's not the biggest total on the slate, but it's not small either. We're talking about these scrubby teams, and scrubby teams are fine. We can go down the bench and talk about them, but they're bad teams for a reason. Like, we could also get really just crappy games where one team basically does nothing and it's kind of just a bunch of duds. We got Phoenix Golden State with like within a 5-point spread. The Suns on the road. Klay Thompson has really picked up his game of late. He's launching a ton of threes every night. He's been way more efficient. Chris Paul's back. He's played well. I like going with those two guys tonight. I think that, and again, you've got to think about this from, it's not just the projection or the standpoint where it's where their IPO is going to be at. And I can tell you right now, like, I don't think that either of those guys are going to get bid up too much, just the way I think the slate is going to be laid out. So, maybe a few more eyes on Klay Thompson right now, but not to the point where I think he's going to be, super, super heavily owned. And Chris Paul, the same, he's still just come back from injury. I think Devin Booker probably will go for more than him, but no Steph Curry in the lineup. Like, I like going there. So I think you can, look for a couple like good mid-range guys here tonight. I think you get good IPO values on them. And I think they project pretty well too on Awesemo. So
yeah, that's a big correlation to it, right? And just looking at our own projections and where we have as far as fair IPO value for some of these guys. And I think you clearly lay out with Booker and Paul those options. You did reference Capella, where clearly he has an easier matchup by a mile here against Golden State, especially with kind of Draymond hovering there. But he may be, because of at least that on the surface, Geoff, Ayton may be a sneakier play just because of the initial sticker shock of, going up against that front court there. But if people, again, you mentioned Capella, so I'm kind of using that in somewhat of a comparison. But then we also have that Crowder, Bridges, maybe even campaign type group of ancillary guys that you can target on Phoenix that any one of them could have a big night and maybe hit as far as like a third or really just return something on a positive ROI.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if this game, does turn into a bit of a shootout too, I mean, you're going to have that potential. So you could go deeper. I mean, again, we're talking about quality teams, right? Like,
yeah,
like I think that this game does have more potential to turn into, even though the game total's lower. I mean, I really do feel like, these games are the ones that where, you just look up at the end of the night, it's like 140 to 130 or something. You're like, oh yeah, I mean, it's Phoenix and Golden State. Were we really that shocked that two good teams, kind of went at it? No. So, I don't have like any strong leans other than, going with Paul and Klay Thompson, who again, both project out pretty strongly. And I just think they're going to be good values on Jock market with the IPOs, not getting bid up too much. But you could also look at this one in game. It's the late game.
Yeah.
If someone's getting into the rotation a little bit, you mentioned Jay Crowder. I actually like that call. Good all around performer too. If he gets hot with from three or something, you could certainly look to pick up shares of him if the game starts to pick up the pace a little bit. So yeah, that's this is a game where you can certainly go down the lineup, watch how it's going. Otto Porter Jr., another guy.
Yeah,
I think that fits in that vein. If this one gets going and it looks like we're gonna get like kind of that classic shootout. Yeah, pick up some shares in game because these guys will probably all end up playing bigger minutes and getting more opportunities.
Yeah, and that's another point too here, which is, look, you're on the road. It's a late game. Not to say that the time matters for either of these teams on their coast, but I'm just saying you're on the road. It's the middle of the week here towards the end of the schedule. It's only a 4.5 point line. You could easily see Golden State hanging with Phoenix, making this a game, even as you referenced earlier, where a blowout can happen in the second half or ultimately Phoenix can pull away. But if you have a tight game here, I think people may just ignore or stay away from Phoenix, which could drop their immediate value, especially since, it's part of the later activity with them in that Blazers-Pelicans game, which probably is going to be over in the first 8 minutes or so. So there's definitely a target there that you can take advantage of.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you mentioned that's the game where it's funny you said that. That's kind of just, I looked at the game and, we're talking about the Pelicans and Portland now. And I mean, I think that you could maybe take you could scrape a couple the low owned guys on Portland, maybe like a CJ Ellaby or something, just because it's getting such big minutes, or maybe even like going down to like Macklemore or something again. But it's not really a game where I'd feel confident in that any of the Pelican studs necessarily going to play too much, because I just think that one is going to be over very quick as well. So
right now, is there anybody? So again, like this would take a super magnifying glass here, right? Because you referenced Houston, where it's getting to the point on some guys where if they're not going or if they get pulled, you're down to just the hope and pray that somebody you don't even know is going to take advantage of volume here. But again, look, the Pelicans are not the best team in the NBA by a mile, Geoff. So would it truly shock you if somehow McCollum, I know Valanciunas is questionable coming in here, right? But would it truly shock you if Ingram and McCollum, and even if it is Jonas out there, it's just going through the motions, and it's a team that even they don't know who they're playing here? I do wonder if there's anybody in this game beyond even like at the top that you could jump in here on Portland. I mean, you mentioned, of course, I don't even know who would be outside of Ellerby, to be honest with you. I mean, what are you getting from Eubanks, right? Especially at a higher number there. So
yeah,
maybe there isn't. As I talk myself through this, maybe there really isn't an opportunity to take advantage of anybody.
And Eubanks is fine. It's just, again, you're going to have to pay up. Like that's going to be, I think, the name that he's coming off a massive game, obviously. And Brandon Williams is too. So, if you are going with Portland, like I would kind of scrape the bottom of the barrel and look to take cheap shots with like a Chris Dunn or something like that, or Jose Alvarado, maybe even. I mean, just like, because this game could go so many different ways where you're just getting, Alvarado's obviously talking about the Pelican side. If it turns into a blowout is what I was trying to get at. But Macklemore is another player on Portland who you could just see a few more minutes, maybe if this one just turns weird, or maybe just comes off the bench and plays well, because we have no idea how the Portland rotation is going to really go any night. I mean, they're just launching so many different players in there with like different skill sets and stuff. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm with you. Like, I'm not super high on paying up for the Pelican studs. I know, on paper, it's a great matchup, but like you said, it feels like a go through the motions night where, maybe a couple guys on Portland show up and have decent fantasy nights, but it's kind of a game. Like, I don't know. I'm almost just like happy to write off because of all the weirdness with both those teams kind of. So
I get it, man. Trust me. I will add this one little nice play here because it didn't hit 2 games ago, and I think people moved away from it, and Herbert Jones came back in emphatic fashion. But the books are and I'm waiting for your spot here to put this up, but the books are still normally at least asking for just over a half a 3 for Herbert Jones, who is averaging 1.1 makes this month, or the month of March, if you look at it winding down, and only had that 0 for 5 night 2 games ago. But before that, had like a 5-6 game stretch of makes, and he comes back last night. He has volume. So even on that 0 for night, he was 0 for 5 on a 2 of 11 night overall. My point being is that even if it's asking you to lay like, 125 to 130, 135 even, and you can look at the break-even points on all that, I still think that you can go over a half a 3 for Herbert Jones tonight. Still like that play. I just need it to be up on the board before I can.
I mean, I agree. If it's up, I mean, I'd take that as well. I mean, we're asking for the guy basically to get like 2 attempts here. So, and he's launched 12 attempts over his last 2 starts. So
I love it. I
mean, if it's up there, I mean, I might even take that all the way to -150 or something. So obviously you want to look for the best number, but
sure.
Yeah, no, Herbert Jones. I mean, just trying to, I don't know, jock market. I mean, yeah, you could take a shot too. I mean, maybe his minutes go up, or he ends up being the guy who scores for the Pelicans tonight. But again, this game, I don't know. It's tough. Kind of give me a headache talking about it.
I get it. Grizzlies Spurs is sitting at 234. That's a gigantic total there. Yeah. That may be one to hit. And also, you reference Jokic as far as a top spend up option. That game still under double digits as far as the spread, but in Indiana, that game has a total even higher, hovering around that 236. So, Grizzlies Spurs at least has some marquee names. I know the Morant factor not there, but there's probably a bunch of guys we can target with such a high number here, especially with assists now coming into play for guys as well as just points when you have a total that high.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that, both these games, obviously, I think more like have have huge totals that you want to target, have a lot of fantasy potential. Obviously, we got the closer point spread with Memphis and San Antonio. That's probably my preferred game just in terms of like looking at fantasy options, but both of them, I mean, have a lot of potential. On the San Antonio side, I mean, they're at home, so it does feel like a spot where, people could just be overlooking them a little bit just because, Memphis is obviously a quality team and they're the favorite, but I don't mind going down the San Antonio road a little bit here. I mean, Jakob just a really solid fantasy performer. And on this kind of slate, I mean, if his jock market IPO drifts a little bit, like I think this is a fine spot to take him at home. You look at what he's done at home. I mean, he's been a lot better scorer at home, actually. So a little bit more efficient too from the free throw line. So that's not bad. I think that I think San Antonio is a team like worth coming back with. So, obviously Desmond Bane has really picked up his game over the last little bit. He's become like a very consistent fantasy producer. He'll probably be a popular target tonight. So that's something to think about. You might even want to go down the Memphis lineup, maybe taking a shot with like Tyus Jones or something like that. But you can certainly, come back on both sides of this game. And the nice thing about this game is too, it does offer us like mid-range options. Like, I mean, obviously, we can pay up for Dejounte Murray here, and I'm absolutely fine with that too. I almost prefer him like almost as much as Trae Young, as a player to come off of the top 2 options with. So he's certainly in play, but you can go with mid-range options on both sides of this game. And I think you can be pretty happy with what you're getting. So it's a good one to target for sure.
Yeah, and especially if you are looking at somebody on Memphis, right? If it's depth and taking advantage of that, depending on how this thing plays out. But absolutely, and Murray is definitely going to be up there. But you mentioned some options that you can target on San Antonio that are going to be less popular and more value, especially if one of those guys pays off, because you can just pair up what Geoff's laying out with our fair IPO as well. All right, final couple of minutes here on the Jock Market Strategy Show. Hit that thumbs up button, please, if you haven't already, hanging with us. And look, take advantage. You see what Mike's been putting up there for you, the 100% deposit bonus up to $50. So download the app, be a part of the Jock Market community, and when you sign up, you use that promo code Awesemo, AWESEMO, and we'll match that first deposit up to $50. And you can start winning tonight. Like right now, tonight. Geoff's giving you enough information that you can put together a winning ticket on Jock Market tonight. That's amazing. You don't have to wait 30 days or something for a return on this. You're getting it right away, man.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, Jock Market settles at the end of each slate. Obviously, you can pick and choose too. I mean, you can do the stuff in game. You can bid up at the IPOs pregame, so you can set it and forget it and just see where it ends up at the end of the night. Or you can just, if you're a guy who likes to sit and watch every minute of every second of the game, then you can trade in game too, man. Like once you try Jock Market a couple times, you will almost be guaranteed to like it. I mean, I'll say that it's a fun way to go, and it doesn't. Again, you don't have to watch every second of the game, but you can, and you can take advantage of that if you do. So, and one player you can possibly take advantage of that today. I'm gonna drop that.
I love it.
Is Lamar Stevens with the Cleveland Cavaliers.
Yeah.
I like the spot for him. Just from the perspective of, the Cleveland's missing some players. Obviously, we're not talking guards necessarily, but Stevens has been like a really good, solid part of the rotation lately. We've got, Mobley still out, obviously, Jared Allen out. I mean, it's just going to mean more usage for players like Stevens. And I just think that with this game having a bit of a lower total, he's just going to go overlooked. And I think you pick up cheap shares, and he's a player who I almost, you could also do in game and wait and see, maybe you get him a little bit cheaper at the start if he's not starting or anything, but I'd be fine just grabbing some cheap shares of Lamar Stevens tonight on the Cleveland Cavaliers. I think that's going to be a bit of a sneaky value, hopefully on Jock Market.
All right. One game and really two guys on the same team that I wanted to get your thoughts on before we get out of here that I kind of had circled. And I wasn't sure how soon you were going to get to this game because it's a marquee matchup in the East. It's got a low total, and it's most likely going to be a slugfest. But Jason Tatum sat out last night with the, quote, knee injury. He's back tonight against Miami. I also think Jaylen Brown might be a good opportunity here, a little less of a public favorite by all means. So these are spend-up options. As you mentioned, I'll steal the phrase you said earlier. You're not surprising. You're not sneaking up on anybody here by taking either one of them. But is there value, you think, in getting to either one of these? And let me just spoil my lead here. Tatum over 3.5 at plus money and Brown over 2.5 at plus money. Sign me up for that same game parlay for threes.
Oh, okay. You can do both. So yeah,
yes,
I mean,
sir.
So we're going big on Boston here tonight. I mean, I don't mind it at all. I mean, I love it when guys get like probable or questionable tags, and then it's pretty obvious that they're going to play. It just draws a little bit more attention off them. I mean, Boston at home, pretty solid favorites here. I do like the Boston side better too, I have to admit. The Miami side, they've got a bit of a deeper rotation right now, and we should kind of be expecting like everybody to just be playing their regular minutes. So that makes it a little bit harder from the perspective of like who to target necessarily. I think Bam Adebayo isn't a bad comeback option. I mean, we obviously Robert Williams out brings down what Boston has in the middle a little bit too. Kyle Lowry is just a player I'm just going to continue to fade, but I like the Boston side. I like the Jaylen Brown call as well. He's probable tonight. I mean, both him and Tatum are, but I think this is a decent spot for Jaylen Brown. He's played pretty well late. Just being at home is a big thing again, just for the Celtics and obviously, what their implied team total is. So yeah, I think that you could pay up for one of Brown or Tatum tonight. And I think that you'll probably get okay IPOs on both these guys. I mean, Tatum obviously played extremely well of late, and that'll probably keep him like at a decent IPO price. But Jaylen Brown is someone who, if people aren't paying up for Tatum, people just might forget about the rest of this Boston team. And He's produced positive ROI returns on Jock Market in 5 of his last 6 starts. He's played well too. I think, his last game, he went for 10. He produced 80% ROI. I don't think he'll approach $10 tonight on the slate. So I think you've got a good shot there with Jaylen Brown. I like that call. Again, I'm not like entranced or like, hooked on necessarily coming back with anyone on the Miami side, but if this one stays close, I think Bam Adebayo is in a decent enough spot with Williams out. So.
All right, my friend. So the over 2.5 makes, over 3.5 makes, Brown, Tatum respectively gets you plus 320. If you wanted to play it safe, you could go 3+ each. So you drop Tatum down to 3+, you keep Brown over 2.5, and that gets you plus 190. So I'm just trying to help, man. I'm just trying to add my little 1.5 cents here. As you make the world money, I just sprinkle in every now and again. That's all.
No, I like it. I think Boston's in a pretty good spot tonight. What do we got? Like 1 minute left. I'll throw out one more play.
Whatever you want, brother. Your world.
Kentavious Caldwell-Pope kind of was a bust last night, but he's been really consistent chucking the threes of late too. You might want to check out his 3-point prop. I don't know what it is, but I think even on Jock Market too. I mean, I love targeting players against Orlando. They're just defensive efficiency, especially from the perimeter, like not great. I think Pope. I think he's a pretty solid target. And I think most people just be off this game too. Like this is one game where, I mean, we got to it last, obviously, which tells you a lot. But I think this is a game where people just kind of fade away. And Caldwell Pope, if you can get him for cheap enough, I really don't mind. Hate a little sprinkle on the Jock Market side either. 3
threes is a plus 152 return. You like that?
I don't mind that. Yeah,
okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I mean, the attempts should be there at the very least. So
I'm doing it. I'm betting that based off of your advice, just like I'm doing everything on Jock Market based off of your advice. There's no pressure, no added pressure. All right, brother. As always, appreciate it. Geoff is on Twitter at the Fantasy Grind. I'm at Shander Show. Thanks to Mike Awesemo, of course, for producing. Thanks to you all out there for hanging with us. You're all set. You're prepared across the board. Jock Market, download the app. The promo code is Awesemo, and we'll match your first deposit up to $50. Have a great night. Enjoy the games. Good luck.